Friday's second glorious mind emission from the Toad Bunker on the Toad Cam on Toad Friday. The swish pattern. Does it work? I'm not very impressed by the swish pattern. I've seen the swish pattern for a long time. I've seen a lot of people play with it. I've played with it a lot. And I think there have been modest and somewhat interesting effects, somewhat interesting results. But I've been dissatisfied, and where I'm going with and what I'm working on now and what I'm trying to teach you in these multiple exercise and exercise-related videos is a technique that I believe, from my own work, is a significant refinement. A lot of NLP is stuck in its earliest stages, very much like someone who is developmentally fixated in adolescence. And you'll notice there are a lot of old adults walking around who are trapped in various developmental stages. Some people are developmentally fixated as infants. Some people are developmentally fixated as children. Some people are developmentally fixated as adolescents. Certain life stages that included experiences of profound change, profound significance, profound disappointment, profound trauma often act as fixatives, and those parts of the timeline become, I'm not sure what happens on the timeline. There are some changes in the way those things are encoded in one's personal history. Great victories, great triumphs, great loves, amazing sexual experiences, threesomes with trolls, interspecies sex, being taken up by UFOs and having probes placed into your body, hanging out with Don Juan and Carlos Castaneda out there in the Sonoran Desert and seeing the Nahual in person. I'm sure all will be encoded in particularly vivid ways on your timeline. And a lot of NLP concepts, I think, have also been encoded in particularly fixated ways on the timeline. We could probably learn a lot from the Scientologists and their use of e-meters and their time track work. Of course, we would never have the cojones to admit that we were doing such a thing, even though we were shamelessly borrowing those ideas. And that leaves us where? The new techniques that I am introducing, which are really not new techniques, they are refinements, but they are refinements that need to be attended to very carefully, which is the idea of using scalings. And if we're going to, say, borrow some other more tactile or kinesthetic ideas, we could think of, say, a knob that we turn with click stops on the knob, like a 1 through 10, click stop, click, 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 and give us a little body feel, and skillful marketers of stereo equipment put very nice sort of dented, detented feel click stops on those knobs because it gives such a satisfying kind of hand feedback. They know that kinesthetic feel of that knob is very important to one's sense of quality of the experience. So I am going to move us away from the earlier fixations, the earlier stuck spots on being hung up on swish patterns and being hung up on who invented them and hung up on exactly how to do them. And we're moving to a higher quality of experience. We're moving to a more satisfying experience. And I think we're moving to a more intellectually grounded, more effective experience. So that's why we're going to be using scaling, and instead of swishing, wham, whoosh, all this swish kung fu, we'll be using scaled steps where we scale our way in, step, 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 click, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, in terms of truth value. And so we can take certain experiences and we can make them more or less true for us in distinct click stops. We can make them more or less granular for us, click, 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 in click stops. And we can play with these relationships of truth value and granularity. And I think that's a hell of a lot more effective, because if we find a dark spot or a bright spot or a strangely disordered spot on the timeline, we can practice the degree to which our mind will be able to click it down or up in granularity and click it up or down in truth value. And that might allow us to play with all kinds of interesting super advanced techniques, like increasing, say, the truth value of a foreground figure but decreasing the truth value of the background, or increasing the granularity of the fineness of presentation of the foreground and decreasing the granularity of the background. So we can play with contextual groundings as well, making some more true or less true, some more finely grained, others more coarsely grained. We could take groups of people, say there's certain figures, clusters of people around an experience that are internally represented. And I'm not going to be, resistant to content here. I think we can do this with content. There are 3 different people involved in a situation, and you might be able to learn to click, 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 reduce the truth value of one, or reduce the granularity and, say, reduce their significance in the whole thing, and you might be able to increase the significance of another member of a group. So this is an amazing way to work not just coarsely with belief, but work with belief and truth value and impact and effect on our daily thinking in far, far more sophisticated, more profitable, more satisfying, more useful ways than we've been doing it before. So there our model is changing. The NLP model is moving past its fixations. It's moving past its immaturities. It's moving past its hang-ups on its founding figures and its founding models, which, in 30 or 40 years, you would really think there would have major development, and there's been some development, but it's rather shocking, that the type of personalities that end up in the NLP delivery business often end up being the people most resistant to change and most addicted to early conceptions as part of their identity statements. They have an identity statement which is basically an addictive identity statement towards something way back there on the timeline, and it's an addiction they haven't figured out a way to break. So we're going to break those addictions. We're going to break them like that. We're going to move out of the addictive, out of the needful, out of the dependency phase into the truly proactive, creative development in the present with what we know now phase. So that's the trajectory. Hop on the train while you still can.